Welcome to the MSDW Podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. Microsoft launched its AppSource ISV solution directory in 2016 as a replacement for a collection of old and fragmented systems. The initial coverage compared it to Salesforce AppExchange and promised it would lead to higher ISV solution quality and that it would evolve quickly into a place for commerce, for connections to be made among relevant parties like Microsoft, customers, and channel partners, and ultimately more ISV success. Nearly 5 years later, AppSource has evolved, though not as quickly as Microsoft would have hoped. Most ISVs in the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform space list their solutions there, and some partners even list service offerings. Some vendors report closing sales thanks to the platform, others do not. Still, if you're a tech company that's serious about working in Microsoft's business application space, AppSource deserves your attention. In this special edition of the MSDW Podcast, we are featuring a recent conversation between Microsoft MVP Rick McCutcheon and Microsoft's self-proclaimed ISV headhunter John O'Donnell on the current state of AppSource. Rick originally published this as part of his Partner Talks series and shared it with us. O'Donnell emphasizes in this conversation several strengths of the platform, from its global reach to its expanding set of offerings beyond Dynamics 365 and Azure into other areas of Microsoft's business. They also discuss some ways vendors can optimize their listings to get the most out of the platform today.
Hello, everybody. My name's Rick McCutcheon. I'm a Dynamics 365 MVP, and I'm here today with John O'Donnell from Microsoft. John, introduce yourself and let the people know what you do.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So as Rick said, I'm John O'Donnell. I am a Dynamics ISV partner recruiter here at Microsoft. So I spend my time looking around the world for the next impactful partners, specifically ISVs, as compared to SIs, which we'll talk about as well, and specifically looking for those ones that can drive the next wave of success in partnership with Microsoft, specifically focused around all things Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform.
So this year's been a crazy year for business, but our Dynamics business is growing considerably. So let's talk a little bit, John, about the growth of our business, as well as explain to the people the difference between an ISV and an SI for those who don't understand our Microsoft lingo.
Well, specifically, Rick, we see an ISV as being a partner that derives more than around 50% of their revenue from the sale of software as opposed to services. So it is an interesting talking point because you can start off being an SI in the Dynamics 365 space, specifically deploying products and delivering services. But then over time, you then start to realize that you can then redeliver some of those things that you're doing over and over again. So now you're an SI plus IP. But then the final piece of the journey is that you see partners who want to spend all their time not delivering services, but building actual software. So in effect, you've got SI plus IP, and ISV, and you can transition backwards and forwards.
So we're going to really drill into this world of ISV, but what gets me excited when I talk to partners. And my business today is primarily working with partners, helping them sort of accelerate their ISV business. So when someone's new to ISV, one of the things I explain to them is what's so great about being an ISV, especially a Microsoft ISV, is you may have worked in a region where you've specialized in mining, you specialized in forestry or some specific industry, and now you have this IP. Okay, bundle up this IP, and now the world is your market, not right. Your little region. You can get up on AppSource, which we're going to talk about, but this Microsoft ecosystem really opens up your little regional business to the globe.
Yeah, it really does, because as I mentioned, what will happen is that you'll start to, even as a services organization, you will start to deliver the same type of solution over and over again. And at some point, hopefully someone in your organization will go, well, why don't we package this up into a true software offering and actually sell it as a product in its own right through a marketplace like Microsoft AppSource. And in doing so, it will open up your organization to not just your local markets, say, such as here in the USA or in Canada, Rick, where you are, but it will literally open you up to a global global marketplace. And that's really the magic. But part of that starts with recognizing when you have some IP of value rather than something which may be a tool set for consulting. What is the point where you recognize we've got a really solid offering here that people are going to pay us for over and over again?
And on that note, that I've got a couple of new ISVs that I've worked with, and really once they entered the ISV program, got up on AppSource, one of them, their next deal was in Singapore and they're in Seattle. The other one was in Calgary and the next deal was New Zealand. So it just changes their business. So John, in your role as sort of this global advisor, let's talk about how you help companies sort of get there.
Yeah, you bring up, if I can just kind of backtrack just a little bit, Rick, because the comment about, getting an inbound call coming in from, say, Singapore, but you're an ISV in North America, what has been impactful for me in terms of AppSource this year was, and I even started to post on LinkedIn about it, the fact that I made kind of the joking comment that you could almost tell how successful AppSource is being based upon how late into the evening I was working. What I was referring to was that, it was eye-opening for me to have an ISV based in North America, and then I was pinged late at night, and actually it was from both Singapore and Australia saying, hey, we're a Microsoft seller in both Singapore and Australia. We've discovered your ISV in North America. Can you tell us more about them? So I'm regularly online late at night having calls with APAC, countries like Australia. So it's kind of funny because my typical workday has now expanded to earlier in the morning to encompass the European markets and European and Middle Eastern markets, and then late into the evening to talk with companies out in APAC. And it's actually a wonderful thing. It sounds like it's long hours. It's actually a really fun thing.
And I'm running the same sort of thing where I have 2 ISVs I'm working with in Europe and a couple I'm working with on the West Coast. If I ended up with one in Australia or Singapore, though, I think it would probably do me in. I'd have to stay up 24 hours. But it's really interesting, working with these companies on international business, where once they were just little regional players.
Yeah, and that's really what AppSource is opening them up to. And what you have to understand is, I came into Microsoft in 2007 to specifically recruit ISVs to the Microsoft ecosystem. There was nothing like AppSource. My phone was not ringing off the hook with Microsoft sellers and other customers calling in from around the world. So I was aligned to the US marketplace only, and that's where business happened. Now AppSource is transforming the ISV ecosystem to a global community, so that even if you don't specifically target, you might be an ISV operating solely out of the USA. I can pretty much guarantee at some point you will get a call from someone around the world saying, we've discovered your solution in AppSource. Can you tell us more about it? Can you help us support a deal? And, in some country around the world, it's truly an exciting time. Even in this pandemic world that we're currently living in, business is not slowing down. It's kind of ironic to think that business seems to have actually accelerated because partners and customers are recognizing that they need more solutions to be more agile in the marketplace.
Well, I think, this pandemic has proven that we don't need any on-premise applications anymore.
That's true, yeah.
We're far better off working in the cloud and working with these workflows that connect us together, or this technology base. So John, let's talk a little bit about, I'm an SI partner, systems integration partner, and I have been working in a vertical for a while and want to start to develop my IP, intellectual property. How do I start working with Microsoft to do that?
The first thing that you have to do, Rick, is you've got to encourage these types of companies to literally pause. And the reason why is that, and I used to work in the outside world as a consultant for Dynamics, ending up with at Avanade before coming to Microsoft. But specifically, you've got to get those companies to pause, because I see it over and over again. I can pretty much guarantee I could walk into any consulting company, ask to look at their last, let's just say 50 projects, and then say to them, you could turn that into repeatable IP. And the reason you want to do that is because if you can develop a set of IP offerings, in effect, the revenue generated from those IP offerings could potentially fill the gaps in your revenue stream in between consulting projects. So for me, it's almost a way to flatten out the revenue flow into your organization, because we all know that, a company will land a big consulting project and then the project ends and there may be a gap where some people are sitting on the bench.
Absolutely.
what happens between the big projects? Well, guess what? If you have a constant revenue stream coming in from ISV offerings, it can fill in those gaps. But it requires every consulting company to sit down and say, we've got to get better at farming our solutions. The best example I can give you, and I'm not going to name names because I work with a lot of great partners around the world. But in one case, I did go to a services organization who were consulting in the Microsoft world and said, show me your last 10 projects. 50% of those projects, in effect, they were reinventing the same thing over and over again, just a different form of it. Well, in effect, what they've done is they've proven a market need, but instead of offering it as a services package, offer it as IP, and then potentially even consider spinning up a separate brand just to offer that IP as well. So it's definitely an exciting time.
And what IP does as well is, studies have shown that the average software buyer is somewhere between 60 and 80% through the buying process before they actually reach out to you. If you have specific IP, then you're going to start to appear in search engines. You're going to start to appear on AppSource in your category. And people are going to see you and say, I need to look at this company that's in Seattle or Toledo or Miami or Copenhagen that does specifically what I need because I want their expertise. And that's the big difference, is people are going to look at you a lot differently.
Yeah, and it's really about proving out your success in the marketplace. And part of that is surfacing your organization in an ecosystem like AppSource, where you can not only offer a IP business, but you can even offer your consulting business, your consulting offerings as well. What I will see in AppSource today is a mixture of both ISV offerings as well as services offerings. And in fact, in the last 12 months, I've seen at least one case where a consulting partner has actually landed a ERP migration project from a competitive ERP to Microsoft. They've actually landed that because that customer actually found that partner through AppSource. So AppSource for me it's game changing. Even though I've been in this business a long time, going back to 2007, I've got to be very clear. AppSource is a game changer because it's opening up more and more of these partners to success, not just in their local regions, but around the world as well. And it's also advertising all of the capabilities that they have today.
Okay, John. So now I'm a partner and I've paused. I've talked to you. Okay, I need to pause and need to look at my business and understand what IP I want to build. What's next?
What's next is making sure that you fully understand the offerings that Microsoft has today. Microsoft is not a Dynamics business. We're not an Azure business. We're not an Office 365 or Microsoft 365 business. We're a business that operates across many technology offerings and multiple clouds. So in my world, for example, in your world as well, we'll also always talk about the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform business. But you've got to look at Microsoft all up to understand, if we build something on Dynamics, could we pull in components from Azure? Could we tie into Microsoft Teams? So you've got to look at the entire Microsoft technology stack. One way to do that is to look at product pages, to look through Microsoft.com/Dynamics to understand, what technology offerings we have today. Do the same thing for Azure, do the same thing for, Microsoft 365. But then also start to consume the content that's available at partner.microsoft.com, as well as the documentation site, docs.microsoft.com. It is absolutely amazing to me in the last few years how both the Microsoft partner portal, but also specifically the Docs portal as well, has grown in terms of the information it offers. So when partners are looking for what do we go next, I would certainly go to partner. And if you're looking specifically for AppSource as well, go to aka.ms/ISV Connect, and that will take you straight into the partner pages for the ISV Connect program. But also definitely look at docs.microsoft.com as well as product pages. You need to understand Microsoft as a whole to understand, what you could build with us, because we've gone from this world where, you had a great idea, but then you thought, okay, well, the technology is not there yet. It's now flipped the other way. There is more technology than you'll ever need. Now what you're trying to do is to mold it into a product which people will want to buy and buy over and over again. But keep in mind the technology space with Microsoft, like everyone else, is constantly transforming. So you do need someone at these organizations who is prepared to look at the big picture and then to work out where we can play in this space.
And that's a good point. They've got to understand, like, when we're talking about dynamics is just a piece, right? We got to talk about these other pieces as well. I'll give you a good example. I was talking to a manufacturer who does and I'm going to introduce you to these people soon. They do a safety piece of hardware. And when I looked at it, they wanted to sell it. And I'm looking at it, and the first thing came to my mind, we got to integrate it with HoloLens. We got to integrate it with field service. We've got to integrate it with Power BI, right? Because it was that type of application. But when I was talking to this manufacturer, they don't understand our world, right? Yeah. And once I started bringing all this up, the guy's eyes are lighting up. But it's true. Like, where can we take this piece of technology once we start to embed it into the Microsoft stack?
Right, and part of it is it always gets back to visibility, because any partner could be successful driving their own business. What they need to understand is that the Microsoft ecosystem and Microsoft AppSource specifically is a massive multiplying effect. Because once you launch into AppSource, you package up your solution, you deliver it into AppSource, you then put out a press release to let people know it's there. Microsoft people and MVPs such as yourself then spot it and say, hey, what are you guys delivering? I'm constantly staggered with what people are bringing to the marketplace. This market, it's not quieting down. It's literally exploding, but now it's exploding at a global level. I'm just waiting for the next ISV, and you just do not know where in the world the ISV is going to show up. And you do not know which country it's going to come from. It's at some point I'll be getting an inbound call coming in from Microsoft Japan or Australia or Dubai or anywhere in the world. And it's an exciting place to be. Even in the current pandemic that we have, partners are not seeing a slowdown. They're seeing an acceleration. And again, it gets back to customers are realizing that if they had not been paying attention to digitally transforming into the cloud, they better do it now. Otherwise, they will not be in business. And we're one of those partners that they can do that with.
Okay, John, I'm a partner. I've paused. I've looked at the Microsoft world, and I kind of have a pretty good idea where we fit in. Now, what do I do?
What I would be doing next would be to go to the ISV Connect pages and understand the collateral that's available there in terms of what could you build, how could you go to market, what would it look like if you launched into AppSource, the app ecosystem. You've almost got to project out. I still see many partners thinking, they think from a point in time now. Let's start building. You've got to project to the other end where you launch the product and then backtrack from there. I used to do Microsoft project support, so I think of the world in terms of Gantt charts. And I want to see a Gantt chart that says, if we're starting today, what is it going to take to get you to the end result? Which means there is an app in the marketplace and you're about to land the first deal. How do you backtrack to that point? Because every partner will have different needs. There is no defined recipe. There is a very high level recipe that says, okay, you've got to have the right technical enablement. Your people have to have the right skill set. We have online training that can get you through the skill set needed. We also can introduce you to development partners who can also act as an accelerator as well. But ultimately, it all comes to the end result. You want to be in the marketplace with a solution that you are proud of, with a solution that you will keep investing in. And then at that point, success starts to drive itself. I like to tell people it's a bit like pushing a snowball up a hill. You get the app in the marketplace, you get a few opportunities in the pipeline, and it starts accelerating. And it starts accelerating really, really quickly. It really is about getting on board the Microsoft train, for success down the line. It's really an exciting place to be.
So, John, I've paused. I've looked at the Microsoft stack. I've decided what we're going to build. I've got a developer. I went to a third-party developer. Now we've got the product built. How do I get it on AppSource? How do I get it on the marketplace?
First of all, you need to sign an app agreement in Microsoft, which gives you permission to publish into the marketplace. Once that piece is done, you then go through a light certification process where you package up your solution, you submit it to the Microsoft certification teams, and typically within about maybe 4 to 5 days, they will approve that, or they'll come back and say you need to make some adjustments, and then they will activate it in AppSource. At that point, you need to go back into Partner Center and click Go Live. Once you click Go Live, probably within minutes, your solution is now visible to the entire planet. And you've got to pause there for a second, because it's kind of one of these crazy things. It's the realization that once you click go live, you are now searchable by any company that goes to AppSource in the world, and they could be reaching out to you saying, "We've just found your great solution. Let's take a look at this." From my knowledge of how the whole platform works, you've also got to realize that every company from small to mid-market to large enterprise is looking at AppSource for solutions. So it's a very exciting time, but that also means that when the solution appears in AppSource, it's also a time for celebration. I would strongly recommend that you put out a press release on PR Newswire, for example. Pick whichever one you want, and let Microsoft people know. Let the MVP community, like Rick, yourself, you're phenomenal. When you see ISV solutions out there, even if you've never been engaged with them, you rebroadcast the messages just as we do. We are working to build a global successful story. Even if I never personally will engage in ISV, it's not on my target list. One of my colleagues has worked with them. It doesn't matter to me. I will still re-amplify the story. And once this story gets out there and starts building traction, that's when success starts to happen. And that then further encourages the ISV to keep investing in that solution, keep updating the marketing on AppSource as well, and just keep driving for success.
So one of the things that people don't realize as well is once it goes up on AppSource, you've got several audiences that are going to come to it. You've got end user customers looking for that solution. You've got partners who are looking for a co-sell, or we should say a P2P arrangement, partner-to-partner arrangement. And you've got Microsoft sellers who are looking for specific applications to solve the customer's problems. So you're not just the end user customer. You all of a sudden now open yourself up to a reseller channel that can really support you. So John, I know we've had conversations about this in the past. What can somebody do to optimize that AppSource listing to get the most from it?
It's kind of been my passion for the last few months, Rick. Looking at listings in AppSource and working out, can they be better? And there's a couple of lessons I've learned, or a couple of patterns that I've seen. You can see a pattern where, for example, you can tell the listings where the partner's marketing team were not involved. You can see where the technologists developed this phenomenal solution. They got it into the marketplace. They built out a basic listing and they published it into AppSource. I then go into other ecosystems where potentially the partner has also published, and I'm looking at the two listings going, why is one reading better than the other? And it's because on the other one, they pulled in the marketing team. If you're a company that has a phenomenal marketing team, please get them involved in reviewing the listing, because they know exactly how to fine-tune the messaging so that it is compelling. The other piece is that you've got to also assume that when someone goes to your listing on AppSource, you've got to assume that they're potentially looking at that listing for 8 seconds maximum. So I'll say it again, 8 seconds. This is like someone opening up a newspaper, and each story is competing for your attention. So you've got to look at what is my intro title? What do my visuals look like? If you're displaying screens which has a lot of white space, are they truly the most compelling visuals that you could use? Or are there potentially some visuals related to the industry you're trying to sell into?
And how important is it to have a short explainer video?
Yeah, exactly. But it would almost be like if you were trying to target the oil and gas industry, is your screenshot going to be as impactful as maybe a shot of a helicopter landing on an oil platform off the Gulf Coast, for example? What I will also do next is compare your listing against your competitors, both on AppSource as well as other ecosystems that are out there, and be honest and just look at this and say, which is better? Which one would grab your attention the most?
Not just you look at it, have some other people look at it too.
Right. And actually, you might have seen me posting about this idea of, what I call mystery shopping. It's this idea that if you could take someone who wanted your type of solution, what are they going to search for when they come into AppSource? And it's truly like a mystery shopper type of scenario. You're trying to work the system. You're trying to work out, are there words and phrases that people will search for that my listing doesn't have, and therefore my listing doesn't appear? I think the key point here is you've got to pay attention to what the analyst firms are saying. Because if they're using acronyms for your industry and your listing doesn't have them, what will happen is that your competitors will be picked up because they did their due diligence and said, okay, I'm going to make sure that if analyst ABC is using a particular acronym, the likelihood is people will come into AppSource, type in the same acronym. Your listing has to basically react. What that really gets down to is that a listing in AppSource it's not the end of the story, it's the start. And what that really means is that you've almost got to look at this on a month-by-month basis. And because we can refresh these listings within 24 hours with a marketing update, your marketing teams could actually try things. They could say, okay, for this month, we're going to change the description and the title slightly, and then go live again and see what happens over the next month. So you can definitely play with the listing itself. But that really gets down to what this really means for the partner. It's about constant investment in the platform. If you throw a listing in there and you never touch it again, your success will be pretty limited. The partners who are being successful are the ones who are fully invested. They're taking advice from Microsoft. Microsoft does have a page in their partner center that talks about how to optimize your listing, at a certain level. What I do is I go in and say, why is your listing not appearing when I search for this particular search term? And then I will reach out.
So, when we start to look at sort of content, I like to look at reviews. What are other people saying about your application? How important are reviews on AppSource?
Reviews are critical because what you will see is that customers really, really want the quality of a product to be determined by the customer base, and that ultimately means reviews. So if you're an ISV where you've sold this multiple times, you have to almost put in as part of your process with a customer, please give us a review on AppSource. And what you'll see over time, is that if they keep doing that, it's like a seal of approval, but it's a seal of approval from the customers who are using the product. And if you keep doing that enough, at some point you reach a tipping point where it becomes obvious that if solution 1 has 0 reviews and solution 2 has 50 reviews, which one are you going to look at first? Now that doesn't mean that the solution that's got 0 reviews, it could be new in the marketplace. But it may be that they've got to do more creative marketing to get people to realize, look at us as well.
They're starting behind you. If you have better reviews and they don't, they're starting behind you. In fact, one partner I talked to last week said these reviews are so important to his business because he's in a very competitive ISV marketplace.
Right.
Is that he'll ask the customer to put it in a review. If he doesn't get one, he'll figure out what he can give the customer to do it. So the customer says, I really need this done by Friday. Okay, I'll get it done for you by Friday. Please have a review up by Friday for me. So he starts negotiating reviews, and he says it's absolutely worth it. He's now competing against one of the big industry giants with his little, 20-man company. And he says it's really the reviews doing it for him.
Yeah, and that's really exciting, especially if the customer puts in honest reviews. If someone says this is a great product, if they did something else, we'd give them 5 stars, but right now we're giving them 4.
Yes.
Then potentially they could, the ISV could respond, deliver that feature, and then they up it to a 5-star review. Customers have choice. And it's just like us as consumers. What do? We look at customer reviews to determine, is this a product I should at least be paying attention to? That also means that you've got to look for avenues to market as well. Again, when you look at LinkedIn, and when we go back to the ISV putting out an original post to say our solution is in the marketplace, one of the things I've started doing a lot more of over the last 12 months is making sure I'm adding appropriate hashtags. So a great example was one of my ISVs launched a solution that would target the insurance sector. And it's kind of staggering because some of these hashtags will have literally multiple millions of followers. In one case, and I can't remember which one it was, there was actually 4.5 million followers who were following a particular hashtag on LinkedIn. So before any ISV launches, they've literally got to start looking at the hashtags to make sure that when they put out their press release, they can tie to those as well. It's definitely a combination of things, but you've got to keep exploring AppSource, and you've got to keep making sure that if a solution that is competitive to you seems to be getting attention, is it because it's a better product, or is it because they're doing more creative marketing? Are they using better screenshots, more impactful screenshots? Is their one-line tag a bit more compelling than yours? Because again, if you look at a solution on AppSource and you read the description and you're sitting there going, I still do not know what the solution does, that's a marketing issue. It all comes back to, if you've got access to a marketing team or a marketing person, take advantage of them because they are the experts at getting a message out.
John, I want to thank you. This has been a great conversation. We're going into a new year. And
absolutely.
This ISV marketplace is going to keep growing. So I want to come back and talk to you some more in the future about what it means to be a Microsoft ISV and, the opportunities it can bring you.
Appreciate the opportunity, Rick. It's definitely been it's been a challenging, but it's been a fun 12 months. And the partner ecosystem has, it's for me, it's just an exciting place to be. And I'm always thinking, what's going to be launched, what's coming next in 2021 from the ISV's perspective. So greatly appreciate the opportunity and look forward to future opportunities.
Okay, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
This has been another episode of the MSDW Podcast. My thanks to Rick and John for this episode. To learn more about Rick's Partner Talks, go to www.partnertalks.com. He has done dozens of them at this point, and they all bring an interesting perspective. You can also find more from Rick and John on LinkedIn, where they're both quite active. If you want to get in touch with me, my email is jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com, and you can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.